Welcome back to my YouTube channel, guys. Just kidding. This has been a long awaited video. So many people were asking me to make this, but let's go over insulin, specifically how to manipulate it. What is insulin resistance and sensitivity? So let me just explain what happens when you eat carbs. So here is my picture of honey. Let's say you ate honey. Well, honey gets broken down into your bloodstream as glucose, okay? Now, when glucose is inside of your bloodstream, insulin releases because that glucose needs to be transported into some muscle. So just think about when you eat a carb, it wants to go to the muscle. You want to get it to the muscle. And to get it to the muscle, you have to jump in a car, which is insulin. And insulin will drive you to the muscle, into your cells, regardless if that's muscle cells, depending on the types of sugars or glucose you do. It'll either be stored in muscle cells or your liver. Anyways, eat our carb, it gets turned into glucose, and then insulin releases to bring it into the muscle, right? We get it. Now, let's go over insulin resistance and sensitivity. So, insulin sensitivity. It is how effective our body uses insulin. Okay, so with high insulin sensitivity, our body uses insulin easier. Okay, it uses less insulin to do the tasks that it would need to if we were resistant, right? For example, better nutrient partitioning, right? We just talked about how it brings it to the cells. So when insulin is easier to be released, increased nutrients to our cells. Better for fat loss because if you're insulin sensitive, insulin spiked easier and it drops quicker. Right? When insulin's high, fat loss isn't allowed because insulin is a storage hormone. Okay? And then it drops, allowing fat loss to be better and better pumps, right? When you have your pre-workout meal and you have carbs, everyone knows this, right? Insulin spiked easier. When insulin's high, carbs are the main energy source. On the other hand, if you are insulin resistant, that means you are less responsive to glucose. So if, let's say I had a tablespoon of honey and I was insulin resistant, well, it would take longer for my body to produce insulin, and it'll produce more insulin to do the same job. This is what people don't get. When you're resistant to insulin, your body uses so much more to do the same job, whereas if you were sensitive to it, super sensitive, right? Which makes it easier for fat gain because when your body needs more insulin, your insulin stays high for longer. And what I just said is when insulin's high, carbs are the main energy source. Your body doesn't burn fat. Insulin is a storage hormone, so your body says store, store, store. Okay? Easier for you to gain fat. And I know you guys, everyone's had this before. You had a huge sugar meal. You guys had crumble, okay? You had crumble on an empty stomach. And about an hour later, your vision is blurry. You're laying on your bed. You can't even think straight. And you're wondering, what did I just eat? Well, it's called your insulin is freaking the fuck out. And then just a worse look in general in the mirror, right? A lot more flatter, right? So we want to be insulin sensitive. We want our bodies to react to insulin better, use less to do the same task, right? Pretty much the basis. Keel. How do I become more sensitive? Well, let's talk about it. If you want to become more insulin sensitive, lifting. If you work out, you are doing a lot more than a lot more people do to fix their insulin, right? When you lift, right, high output exercise, heart rate's increased, your body uses carbs, okay? Now, when you lift, you burn carbs, okay? You burn carbs after your lift, your body's like, oh, we don't have any more carbs. We need carbs. Knowing that, your body becomes more sensitive to insulin because insulin is a storage hormone. It stores glucose in our cells. So, we become insulin sensitive after lifting. This right here is the reason why I'm able to eat 37 to 4,000 calories a day and not gain any weight, with 600 to 650 of those calories being carbohydrates. Okay? Post-meal walks, most insane thing ever invented. Digests everything better, increases your sensitivity. Number 3, fasted cardio. Dude, AMPK, I know too much, guys. AMPK, it's pretty much your body's low energy sensor. So doing fasted cardio, when there's no energy, there's no protein, there's no carbs digested, insulin is low, AMPK kicks in, And it says, okay, where are we going to get our energy from? Fat. When AMP kicks in, our body starts pulling energy from where it needs to, fat cells, right? But we still do use a bit of carbs. So all those little bit of carbs we do pull out, our body wants to replace them because they're already low in the morning. So this increases our sensitivity. Sleep, bro. Sleep is literally like the number one thing that you need. Genuinely the number one in all aspects. Weight loss, weight gain. Sleep improves everything. We all know this. And then the last thing that I've implemented that I've noticed improvements is smaller meals more frequently. So instead of having like 3 nukes of meals, let's have 5 smaller meals that we can digest easier, have a lower insulin spike, feel better. Because our body doesn't want to digest food all day. Come on. These are some things that you can do if you're insulin resistant, or even if you're just wanting to improve your sensitivity. Just do these. Like, this is literally all you need. I'm putting you on to a lot of game in this video. Workout optimization. Now get ready for me to go full teacher mode, because I'm about to drop some fucking game. So we all talk about our carb up meals, but why do we carb up? Why do you carb up? Do you know why you carb up? Probably because you saw me talking about it on Instagram. But do you actually know? Anyways, we carb up because we want to spike our insulin, so our insulin peaks when we start working out. When insulin is high, carbs are the preferred energy source. So we spike our insulin so it peaks when we start working out. Carbs are used throughout the workout, okay? When we get post-workout, insulin is low. Do you want to know why? Because we've used all of our carbs. And the reason I say have high carbs pre and post-workout is because we're so insulin sensitive post-workout, because we just use all of our carbs. Our body's like, we need more. So we become sensitive. Increases our nutrient uptake because our body wants to store into our cells. You know your double XP token on Call of Duty? Eat carbs with your protein post-workout, guaranteed. Anyways, but that brings me to our GLUT4 receptors, okay? So GLUT4, a little bit too scientific for the average person. It's literally opens the door for glucose to come into the muscle. Just think of it as a door that opens and it lets glucose into the muscle. And it's activated and a lot more closer to the muscle surface post-workout because we want to store. It's also triggered by carbs too. Just something I thought I'd put in here. When we work out, our glycogen depletes and it needs to replenish. So all of our nutrients are allowed back into the muscle when we spike our insulin with our double XP Call of Duty token. Replay this part of the video if you didn't get it. I hope I explained that well. I probably went full scientist mode. Anyways, what actually has an effect on insulin carb-wise? Because we know insulin spikes primarily through carb intake. So we have carbs. Carbs are measured on a glycemic index, GI. And that's how fast-acting they are, or how sugary they are. So a high GI carb would be an example. Any of your sugars, like your mangoes, bananas, honey, sugar. Rice is generally medium acting, right? It's easily digestible, which is why I would say it's a high GI when it's actually not. But easier digestible carbs means quicker insulin, right? Because the quicker you can digest it, the quicker the glucose goes to the bloodstream, and then the quicker insulin is triggered to bring that glucose somewhere to the muscles, right? Versus a low GI. So a lower GI would be starches, your potatoes, sweet potatoes. I threw fiber in here because fiber doesn't spike your insulin like ridiculously, I don't think. Please don't quote me on that, but they're generally slower digesting. So you digest them slower for that glucose to go into the bloodstream, which means it's a slower insulin spike, right? Versus a sugar versus a starch, okay? Slower insulin response, which pretty much brings me to almost the end. I mean, we want to use our fast acting around the workouts because we know we're most sensitive around workouts. Slower acting throughout the day when, you know, maybe it's dinner time and you know all you have left is to go on a walk post dinner. Have a bunch of potatoes. Since they're slower acting and slower digesting, have your post-meal walk after eating potatoes at dinner, and then you're already improving your sensitivity and digestion at the same time. Yeah, I think I went over this very quickly, but it's not as complicated as people think it is. They just don't understand it. I hope you guys can understand like why you would want to use insulin and become more sensitive. But let me give a little recap. So you eat your sugar, it gets digested, and it gets broken down into glucose inside of your blood. Okay. When it's inside of your blood, your body understands that and releases insulin. And when insulin is released, it takes that glucose from your blood and brings it into the cells, right? The reason we want to be sensitive to insulin is because we use less to do more, right? Better nutrient partitioning, better fat loss, better pumps, lower crashes throughout the day. When you're resistant, it means you need more insulin to do the same thing as if you had high insulin sensitivity. More crashes, just like the crumble example. Yeah, honestly, insulin, once you figure this out, because this goes part and part with my last video, the Advanced Lifters Guide. Now this is all put together into one. If you can manipulate your insulin and control it while doing the Advanced Lifters how to stay lean year round, that's what I do. Like, that's generally what I've mastered, and I do because I've done all of this and all of this. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. This one is literally game. I didn't touch on AMPK too much, but you know what, maybe let me explain AMPK. This will be the end of the video. If you guys want to click off, go ahead, but AMPK is so amazing. How can we manipulate AMPK? Well, it is our body. It's our low energy sensor, right? So let's say for fasted cardio, right? If you don't know what fasted cardio is, it's when you wake up in the morning, don't eat anything, and you do cardio, right? So when you do fasted cardio, right, since you haven't eaten anything, AMPK kicks in because there's low energy available. So AMPK says, where can I find energy? It pulls from fat cells. This is why I do fasted cardio even when I bulk or gain, because you can burn fat and pull energy out of fat cells just doing fasted cardio. So when AMPK kicks in, it takes the energy from fat cells and uses it as energy, right? When you're doing fasted cardio as well, we know that you burn a 70 to 30 fat to carb split. So you are still using a slight bit of carbs. And we know what happens when we use carbs from our muscle equals insulin sensitive. So you get to burn fat and become more insulin sensitive at the same time, just because we activate AMPK. This will probably be my most insane guide I've dropped to date. So if you're seeing this video, leave a like on it. If you have any questions, put in the comment. I'll respond to most people, but if you still don't get it, send me a DM on Instagram. We will work through it. Keel is out.